If he's a planet, how could he make a baby with your mother? He would smush her.
I've seen a lot of people online talk about how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the worst movie in the trilogy, or how it's just straight up bad. In my previous Guardians of the Galaxy rewatch video, I said that it was a perfect movie, and I still think that. But I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 improves on a lot of the beloved elements from the first, like the emotional character moments, the jokes, and the music. Hello and welcome to the Phantom Zone. I am your host Ghost, and I am back with the next entry in my MCU rewatch to tell you why I think that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is better than the first. I think it's safe to say that the main reason why people love the Guardians so much is the emotional connection between them all. The first Guardians movie had some pretty emotional moments with Peter watching his mother die right in front of him in the first 5 minutes, and the Guardians ultimately bonding through various forms of trauma. But I would argue that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is consistently more emotional. This movie dives a lot deeper into the emotional growth of pretty much every character. Peter finally meets his father, Ego, and finds out he's a Celestial, which also makes him part Celestial. It's revealed that his father killed his mother, which forces Peter and the Guardians to kill Ego. Then Yondu sacrifices himself to save Peter right as Peter realizes that he was his real father this whole time. Both of these moments feel really impactful, and Peter loses two fathers in one movie. Peter and Gamora's relationship takes a step forward as they both admit that there is an unspoken thing between them. She lets her guard down a little bit and allows herself to dance with Peter shortly after they land on Ego. Gamora is also the one who encourages Peter to go with Ego after he tells him that he's his father. Then once they're there and she senses that the vibes are weird, her protective nature for him and the group kicks in and tries to gather the Guardians and leave. I feel like Gamora really embraces her den mother role in this movie. Also, Gamora and Nebula finally open up to each other and start the beginning of their friendship as sisters right after they try to kill each other. Yondu pushes Rocket to finally open up after digging into him because he recognizes Rocket insulting everyone is a defense mechanism because he's afraid to get close to people like Yondu used to be. This scene hits even harder after watching Guardians 3 because we know why he's so defensive.
Of course I care about the planets and the buildings and all the animals on the planets. And the people.
Once Yondu tells Rocket how messed up Ego is, they both risk their lives to save the Guardians. Mantis, quickly after meeting the Guardians and socializing for the first time ever, develops some empathy on her own and warns them of Ego's plan and buys them some time as she temporarily puts him to sleep. Drax and Mantis also start to develop their friendship as Mantis empathizes with Drax's pain, plus they bond over them both being idiots. And Drax also says that they don't leave anyone behind because they're a family, finally signifying that that's what they are now. I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is funnier than the first, but I also think it tries a bit too hard to be funny at times. I still think Guardians 1 is funny, but I feel like there aren't as many jokes as Volume 2, which is more consistently funny, but some of the jokes might overstay their welcome. Or maybe it's not the fact that there are more jokes in Volume 2, but it's the way that they're structured. Guardians 1 had a lot of pop culture references, which, to be fair, is how a lot of the jokes in the MCU are structured, and at this point it just feels lazy. Comparing a character or story element to something that exists in the real world isn't very funny, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. Even if you're not a fan of James Gunn's humor, you have to admit that writing a scene of two or more characters talking back and forth in a comedic way takes significantly more effort than just saying that this thing is like that thing that you, the audience, know. For example, the Taserface scene. Whether you think this joke lands or not, the movie is stopping and telling you we're doing a joke here. And I'm saying that the previous movie wouldn't really do that, or at least to the extent that Guardians 2 did. And if you think this joke or others go on too long, that's totally subjective. I don't love every joke in this movie, but I do respect the commitment to the bit, and for the most part, I think a lot of the jokes land. even if at times they may force it a bit too much. But my favorite jokes mostly came from Drax and Baby Groot. They were the funniest characters in this movie to me, and I think they shined better in jokes that were a bit shorter.
It would make my nether regions engorge.
Okay.
I also think Rocket has some hilarious moments in this movie too. Like, I don't know why, but when he calls Peter Star Munch, that just gets me every time.
Know why I did it, Star Munch?
I'm not gonna answer, Star Munch.
I think little jokes and moments like this work the best for me personally. Anyway, neither movie inserts jokes that take away from the tone of the scene, which is the most important thing. Like, the David Hasselhoff cameo is funny, but not like laugh out loud funny. But it also doesn't take away from the intensity of the scene because, yeah, sure, it's David Hasselhoff, but it's disturbing that Ego can take that form, the form being the idealized version of Peter's dad, which is now yelling at him. All in all, I think the jokes in this movie are structured better, funnier, and more frequent. A hot take I hold is that I think the Guardians 2 soundtrack is better than the Guardians 1 soundtrack. I said in my last Guardians video how that soundtrack became so popular that it hit number 1 on the US Billboard Top 200, but I feel like there were more songs that were super popular. Not to say that that's bad, having popular, recognizable songs in your movie. Guardians 2 definitely has some of that as well. I just think a song makes a scene better if it's used more in a supporting way, if that makes sense. Like in Guardians 1, it kind of takes me out of the movie at the end when they play I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, because everyone has heard that song before and associates that song with certain memories and ideas. Whereas Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Swede is almost exclusively associated with Guardians of the Galaxy because it wasn't a very popular song, and now that's the song everyone remembers from that movie. What I'm trying to say is that in Guardians 2, most of the songs aren't as popular as a lot of the soundtrack from the first movie, which makes the scenes more impactful since the songs don't quote-unquote distract from the film and fit the scenes better. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments which soundtrack you think is better, Guardians 1 or Guardians 2. I think the only element of the movie where I could see someone argue on why the first movie is better is the plot. Not the story, but the plot. In the first movie, a team of misfits learns to work together to escape prison and sell the orb, but once they realize it's an Infinity Stone and Ronan wants it, they come together to try to stop him once he gets his hands on it. There are more characters who have a connection to either Ronan or Thanos, and they all wanted the orb, so the stakes for each character kind of make sense. In Guardians 2, the plot mostly centers around Peter and his father, with a lot of growth from the other characters more as subplots. I would argue that Peter was the main character in both movies, and each Guardian gets plenty of time to shine, but in Guardians 2, they form a deeper connection to one another. In both movies, however, they come together to save the galaxy. In the first movie, they go from strangers to friends, and in this movie, they go from friends to family. Overall, yeah, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is better than the first. But what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think that the first Guardians movie is better? Let me know in the comments below. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to give this video a like. It would really go a long way for me and my channel. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.